Welcome back to the Schwowin's Nest. My name is Sandra, and here on my channel, I love to show you how to create high-end home decor pieces with a really inexpensive budget. I head to the thrift store, I grab some dollar store items, and create some beautiful home decor that I think you will love. If you're ready to get some inspiration and create some of your own home decor pieces too, then hit that subscribe button and let's get started. If you checked out my thumbnail, then you know this is Timber Tuesday, where everything that I create with today is made of wood. I took 3 of these Jenga blocks, and these are some of the larger ones. I think I got this box at the thrift store. I glued 3 together to create a base, and then I took a wood block, and I think you can get these at the Dollar Tree, and glued that on top. Just hot glue. It works perfect. Now I'm just taking some sandpaper and I'm going to be sanding off some of those numbers just to get some of the indentations a little smoother. I am a spindle collector and I always find different pieces at the thrift stores. I will use table legs, I will use couch legs, you name it, anything that looks like it could be used as a decorative object or even as its own purpose, I'm going to grab it. This is a wood finial that I did find at the thrift store. It was a single one in a bag of a bunch of other junk. The second one here is this wood egg cup that I bought at a local store. Unfortunately, it's closing, so I won't be able to get these anymore, but I still have a few of them in my stash. And then, of course, this is the very top part of a bedpost, and this just fit together perfectly. Now that this is glued together, I'm going to add some hot glue to the bottom of the wooden egg cup and stick it onto the wood block. Decorative objects like this, when you see them at retail stores, can be really expensive. So making your own out of whatever scraps you have is a perfect idea. I like to make my things in sets of 2 or 3, and I also wanted to make them in different sizes. So I was lucky enough to find enough little scrap pieces of wood in my stash to be able to put the 3 of these together. Next, I'm going to be painting all 3 of the spindles black. You can see that I have a bunch of different wood colors here and I need to make them all the same. So when I apply the next color on top of them, they are all the same underneath. That also helps to prevent any of the old stain from bleeding through. That neutralizes it. I have been obsessed with crackle lately, and if you've been following me on my channel, you've seen in the last month or 2, I've been doing it a lot. I've used regular clear school glue for doing that crackle effect, and that works really well. I also have a real crackle medium, and I'll be using that today. This crackle medium is from Folk Art, and I will try to find a link for it and stick it in my Amazon store. I think they also will carry it at Michael's and maybe some other craft stores too. All you do is simply cover anywhere on your project that you want a crackle paint appearance to show up. I'm going to do it on all of it, but you could definitely just do little bits and pieces. I have done that before where just part of the area is crackled, and that looks really authentic and unique as well. You don't need a lot of this crackle medium. You just want it to be nicely covered. However, the thicker you put it on, the bigger the crack you will get. You want to make sure that the crackle is really good and dry. It has a little bit of a sheen to it, but I let mine dry overnight. And I was a little concerned because I had never left it dry that long, but there was no problem. As soon as I started applying my paint on top of it, the crackle started. One thing you have to remember with crackle is you don't want to go over the paint too often because that will disturb it. It really starts to work very quickly. Again, the thicker you put the paint on, the thicker your crackle will be too. You can also get the crackle to go a little bit faster if you use a heat gun, but you can see here that it's already starting to get a nice little crackle to it. I already have one of the spindle objects painted in an off-white. This color is my favorite. It's a mushroom color. And then the next one I'm going to do in a little bit of a darker beige or sort of a light brown color. I wanted them to be different colors, but I still wanted them to look good in a grouping. To give these even more of a distressed look, I'm just going to go around the corners and some of the sharp edges with some rough grit sandpaper, and that's just going to pull off a little bit more of the paint and make it look even more vintage. These turned out exactly how I wanted them to, and I think they're absolutely gorgeous. The next two projects are very similar, so I'm going to show you how to do one completely, and then I'll just show you a little bit of the difference in the second one. I'm using some of these plank boards that you can get from the Dollar Tree, and I also have a couple of these little crates. Those were thrift store finds, but you could definitely use the ones that come from the Dollar Tree as well. You're probably noticing that I'm struggling a little bit with my miter shears. I have had these for probably about 5 years, and the blade is so ragged and dull. I really need to get a new set. So I do have some listed in my Amazon store, and I guess I have to take my own advice and grab myself a new pair. I'm just creating somewhat of a tag shape with these planks, and that is going to be the side pieces of my crates. Using my sanding block, I'm going to round out all of the edges. I don't want anything sharp on here, and I want it to look like it's been around for a while. So that's why I'm rounding everything out. I'm also going to be sanding off any little bits and pieces around the bottom edges because these are cut fairly smooth, but there are still a little bit of splinters here and there. These little crates are going to be really for display only, so I'm only using hot glue to assemble everything together. I used the lines of the crate there to put the hot glue on, and I'm just turning it around and gluing it into place. And I'll do the same thing for the other side and then for the other two pieces of wood that I'll be putting on the second crate. I'm using my miter shears one more time for this little spindle that I'm going to use as the handle, and I just needed to shorten it up a bit on both sides. It was cut a bit on an angle on both sides, so I'm just going to run it across some sandpaper until I get it in a better shape. I'm using just a little bit of hot glue on each end of the spindle, and then I'm going to, again, just eyeball the placement of it. Just very gently push out the side pieces so I can get the spindle in, hold it in place until the glue sets. But I also decided to put these tacks in, which I think would be a little bit better to give some extra security so this little handle doesn't break off. For the handle on the second crate, I only had one spindle, but I've got a ton of beads. So I grabbed a whole bunch of them and I'm going to feed them onto this small dowel. I'll add a dot of hot glue on the dowel itself to hold the last bead in place. And then I'm going to drill a hole on the side of each of the wood panels. I'm going to fit in the little dowel and then add some half beads on the outside to make it look finished. For the beaded crate, I'm going to be using a black gel stain. I'm going to just apply it in sections, wipe off the excess, and then continue on until I'm completed everything. I'm going to do it inside and out. The spindle crate is going to get a whitewash, so I'm using white chalk paint, and every once in a while I'm going to give it a mist with my mister and then wipe off the excess. For the spindle handle itself, I'm going to leave that its natural wood color, and I think both of these turned out super cute. Another product that I'm really enjoying using lately is plaster of Paris. I get this big bag from my local dollar store for about $4, and it really goes a long way. And with plaster of Paris, you can mix it to be nice and thick. You can mix it to be a pourable medium. It really depends just on how much water you're going to mix in with the powder. So I'm just mixing it up in a little bowl. I'm going to use this mold from IOD. It has the cow, the sheep, and the pig, and I'm going to be using the sheep. I want to be able to sort of spoon this into the mold like you see me doing, and I want it still to be able to be moved around. With clay, it's a little thicker, right? So you can just kind of mold it where you want it to be. But plaster of Paris tends to start drying fairly quickly. So I'm leaving enough water in there that I can move it around easily and fill in all the little feet and the head and make sure I can get all the details. It's already starting to set up, so I have the ability to take my spoon or my finger and just smooth it out a little bit better. I want to make sure that it's all nice and level at the top and that I don't have any bumps because I'm going to be gluing it onto a wooden box, so I want it to be as flat as possible. Plaster of Paris comes out very easily from any type of mold. Unfortunately, I ended up cracking those tiny little feet, and that actually happened with the clay too. I'm using hot glue and I'm going to place down my sheep where I want it to be, and then I'll be using a different type of glue to glue on the little feet. Hot glue wasn't holding it together. I started with that, but then I ended up using my Weldbond glue and I just placed the glue underneath and then on top and then set it aside to dry for a good couple of hours. This wood box is something that I've had for a while. It has been painted white. I think I used it for a couple projects and now I'm repurposing it for this one. I'm also repurposing some of these wood egg cups, and these were the same ones as the first one that I used on the spindles. I love using these as little feet. Again, hot glue will hold these in place just fine on the bottom of the box. Now I'm just using my chalk paint in white to paint all of the bottom portion, including the little feet. And then I'm going to be refreshing the whole sides and top of the box as well, including the sheep. Now I'm going to be dry brushing some of this clay chalk paint on top of the sheep. I want it to pop out a little bit so you know it's there. I'm just going to be dabbing my brush into the paint and then wiping off a little bit of the excess and then just picking up all of that texture from the sheep. I'm going to be going around all of the edges. And then once I have the sheep the way I want it to look, I'm also going to do the rest of the box. Just a little bit around the edges. And then I started kind of adding a little bit more in the corners, areas where I felt that dirt and dust would accumulate and make it look a little bit weathered and old. While I was waiting for the plaster of Paris sheep to dry, I took some of these lavender pieces that I got from Walmart a few years ago, and I'm just giving them a light dusting of white chalk paint. They're a little bright for me, and I wanted them to look a little more muted. So in some areas, there's going to be a little bit more white paint, and in others, there's not, but it doesn't really matter to me. I want these to look just a little bit lighter, and you can see the difference in the color right away. So just a few little spurts here and there. You can see how I'm just kind of dusting it. And I like to do this on greens, on florals, anywhere where I want the color to be just a little bit muted. I'm taking all of the sprigs apart and then I'm going to be adding them onto this plastic branch. This came from another type of greenery, and I'm always pulling the stems off because I like to make my own kind of greenery look. I don't necessarily like to leave the things the way they are when I get them from the store. Anyway, I'm going to be adding different sprigs of lavender and I'm creating a little tree. And that is what I'm going to be putting inside of my sheep box. Using a branch that already has all the little pieces that are sticking out that will hold the lavender branches is so much more convenient than having to use hot glue on everything. Now I can simply add some floral foam inside the box and then use the rest of it to just fill it up completely. This floral foam I got from a dear subscriber, and I want to thank her again for sending me all of the box of goodies that she did. I've been using this stuff for a couple of years now, and I hope you're still watching. If you are, thanks again. So I'm just going to be adding some more floral foam just to fill everything up so I don't have to worry about filling too much more with the moss that I'm going to be adding in there. Now all I have to do is push my tree down into the box and fill it with moss, and I'm good to go. This last project is probably the easiest out of everything that I created today. I'm simply taking this basket and this wood candlestick holder, and I'm going to glue them together. And then all I need to do is add some dark walnut stain on the candlestick and the basket, change the color of the basket, and then just blend the two together so they look like they belong together. I've mixed together some black gel stain and some burnt umber acrylic paint, and I just have it in this little dish. I'm using a chalk paint brush, and I'm just going to paint the whole basket inside and out. The candlestick got 2 coats of this gel stain, and you can see immediately that it's just deepening the color, making it look cohesive with the basket. I just love taking a stain and adding different colors to it to get the color that I need or that I want to use. This is a color I think that I'll be using a little bit more often. I love how rich and beautiful it is. Let's take a look at how it turned out. I hope you enjoyed these Timber Tuesday wood decor ideas that I got from dollar stores, from thrift stores, and even hunting around in my stash for scraps. I hope this inspired you to look at things a little differently when you're out shopping as well. Thank you so much for spending some of your time with me today. I truly appreciate it. See you in the next one.